Hey you guys, and welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you a couple tips and tricks that I have on how to keep my foundation completely smooth throughout the whole day and to keep it from not caking up, especially in my T-zone, because you guys know I'm very oily and I like to keep my foundation looking nice and making it last throughout the whole day as long as I possibly can. So as always, if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, just go ahead and hit that button down below so that you don't miss out on any of my videos. And also don't forget to hit the little post notification bell so that you get notified every time I upload. So if you want to see how I achieve non-cakey and flawless foundation, let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so the very first thing to help you avoid a cakey foundation is, of course, to always cleanse your face before you apply any kind of makeup. So my favorite facial cleanser is the Purity Made Simple One Step Cleanser. I've been using this stuff for a little over a year now and I absolutely love it, but I highly recommend this step before applying anything, especially if you are like me and have very oily skin, because you want to get all those oils off before you put your foundation on, because you don't want that oil sitting underneath, so it's going to be hard to blend out your foundation and get it smooth if you did not remove that oil first. And then of course another really important step to achieving a flawless foundation is of course primers. So you want to get primers that work for your skin, whether you're dry, combination, oily, just find the ones that work for you, because if you use the wrong primers, it is going to kind of counteract and not help your foundation sit so smoothly on your face. So for me, being kind of oily and combination, I have an oily T-zone, but I have very dry cheeks. So the ones that work for me are the Smashbox photofinish So Chill Coconut Primer Water. And of course I love the original one too. This one's just the scented one. So I use this, I spray it all over my face, and this just kind of gives my face the hydration that I need before I apply my foundation. And then for my oily areas, I like to use the Soap & Glory One Heck of a Blot Instant Perfecting Power Primer, and this is a shine block primer and it lasts for up to 12 hours, and this really does help keep my oils at bay. I have been using this for about a year now and I always go back to it. No matter how many primers I tried, this is always one of my ride or dies, and both of them together are absolutely amazing and work so good for my skin. So I'm gonna go ahead and prime my face really quick. Alright, so when it comes to applying foundation, I think it is very important to have the proper tools to work for you. So the two that I like, of course, is a beauty sponge and a brush. This is the Real Techniques Face and Body Sponge. I absolutely love this because of the size. Like you can see compared to my hand, it is ginormous and it just helps apply my foundation so quickly and so evenly. I usually run this under water and squeeze it about 10 times as it's under water, and then once I take it out, I'll squeeze it really good, get all that water out, and then wrap it in a paper towel, squeeze it to get all the excess out, and then it's usually damp and perfect for foundation. I don't recommend running it under water and then taking it straight out and using it, because it's just going to be so wet and it's not going to blend your foundation out. And I definitely don't recommend using it as a dry sponge either, because it's just not going to give you the coverage that you want. And then for brush, this is the Sonia Kashuck Stippling Foundation Brush, and I usually like to use foundation brushes for my stick foundations. I feel like these blend it out better than what a beauty sponge would. So when it comes to foundations, the same thing applies to them as it does for primer. You want to make sure you have one that is good for your skin. With me, I like to use more of the matte foundations and full coverage, because I do have a lot of texture and redness and I have eczema on my face, so I want to make sure that everything is covered up. So I usually like to use, like I said, the full coverage ones, and I like to use matte because of the oil. So one of my favorites is the Wet n Wild Photo Focus Focus foundation, and mine is in the shade Buff Beige. I absolutely love this foundation. It works great in all kinds of lightings. You're not going to have flashback. I feel like it helps my skin look so smooth, and of course it is great on the price. I believe it's only like $5 or $6, and it compares to a high-end foundation. So usually with foundations, I like to give it a nice little shake just to make sure nothing is separated, especially ones that you haven't used in a while. You want to give it a good shake. And then with this one, it has a little applicator on it, so I just like to draw a few lines around my face, and then we'll go in and blend it out. You want to make sure to, when applying foundation, that you apply less before you apply more, because that's what tends to get it cakey, is when you go in and apply a lot and then trying to blend it out is just a hot mess, and it builds up in areas which is causing the cakiness. So just go in with a little bit at first, and then the areas that you need to add more, you can add more. So for this foundation, I like to use my beauty sponge, and same thing with the sponges and the foundation brushes. I kind of dab and push it into my skin rather than dragging, because that's what's going to give you that streaky foundation, and it's not going to cover what you want. So I just like to dab and press it into my skin. Okay, so now that I have it all blended out, I see a couple areas that I need to add a little bit more. So I usually have to build areas up on my cheeks just because I have a little bit more red cheeks, so I like to cover them up. And then usually just right through here, because I don't apply a lot of foundation through there. So I just want to make sure that's all covered. And then I'll usually blend a little bit down my neck just to make sure everything's blended and I don't have a line. So I'll just draw a few lines and just kind of blend it down into my neck. Alright, so for concealer, one of my all-time favorites is the Tarts Shape Tape, and I love this one because, like I said earlier, I have red cheeks, so I like a full coverage concealer. So when my foundation doesn't cover everything, I have a full coverage concealer to come right behind it and cover everything up and blend it out. Also, I have really dark under eye circles, so I like that full coverage concealer underneath my eyes to really just cover everything up and brighten it up. So with concealer, I usually go around a shade or two lighter than my foundation shade. So I'm using it in the shade Light right now. I usually use Light Sand, which is like one shade higher, but I'm pretty much out of it. I can probably get a little bit out, so we'll probably use that one. But this one is closer to my skin tone. So one thing with concealer is I like to apply it and then blend it out with a damp beauty sponge. I know a lot of people use brushes, and that is perfectly okay. Just use what works for you. I just like this because I don't like something heavy sitting on my face. So the sponge grabs a little bit and absorbs it, but still blends it out to the point that it's not taking off too much, and it blends it very smoothly. And I personally think concealers is just a preference on which one you like. So just find one that works for you. This one has been my ride or die for at least a year and a half, 2 years now. It is one of my all-time favorite concealers, and like I said, I love it because it's full coverage and it helps cover everything up. So that's usually what I've been drawing here recently. I haven't been going too crazy with concealer. So I'm going to take my beauty sponge and I'm going to take the flat side and begin to blend it out so that I can get it close underneath my eye. And the same motion as foundation, I'm just dabbing it into my skin to make sure that it's pressed into there. And I usually like to kind of stretch my face out so that I can get it close and underneath so it doesn't grab any of my fine lines. Same thing with concealer. Always start with less and build your way up, because if you go in and apply too much, that's when it's going to build up and get super cakey underneath your eyes. And that's the one area we really don't want it cakey, because it's so noticeable, especially with our fine lines. So usually immediately after applying concealer, I like to go in with the powder just so that it doesn't have time to set and sink into my fine lines and cake up. So one of my favorites to set that with is the Essence Brighten Up Banana Powder. It just helps really brighten up those underneath eyes and make it look super bright and help my concealer last all day long. So I usually bring it down a little bit, just making sure to get that concealer really set so that it doesn't have time to move or sink in. And then right after, I just immediately follow with powder, and I have been loving the Revolution Luxury Baking Powder in the shade Lace. And one thing that I've been doing here recently with it is I put it in a little plastic container. So I feel like this technique has really been helping my foundation last so long and not get cakey. So I usually just take a little bit on the end of my sponge and then just begin to press it into my skin. And I really hit those areas where I'm oily first, just so that it doesn't have time to move and it gets set right away before my oils get a hold of it. And I feel like doing this step, it just helps make your skin look so airbrush and smooth, because I feel like pressing that powder in versus taking a brush and gliding it across your face is just helping smooth it out. And I personally feel like this helps make my foundation last even longer throughout the day. Alright, so the last step that I like to take to ensure that my foundation stays smooth all day long and doesn't cake up, and this is actually something new that I've been doing within the last few months, and it is the Urban Decay All Nighter Makeup Setting Spray for Long Lasting. I feel like this just really helps keep my oils at bay and just help my foundation look good as long as it possibly can. So I just like to take this and spray a few spritz across my face after I'm completely finished with my makeup. Alright you guys, so that is how I achieve my flawless and non-cakey foundation. I hope that it gave you guys some good tips and tricks on how to achieve it yourself. So as always, if you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye!